Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Catherine T. Morris, founder and interim executive director of Boston Art and Music Soul Fest. We want to welcome you to this edition of ARTDACITY. For those that don't know, Bands Fest is a nonprofit organization based out of Boston that focuses on breaking down racial and social barriers to arts, music, and culture, and also celebrating and supporting both artists and audiences with an emphasis on Black and Brown voices, perspectives, and artistry. During the pandemic, we decided to create a virtual program called ARTDACITY, and it is a conversational style series that explores the intersections of arts, civic engagement, and the lived experiences between Black and Brown creative entrepreneurs and communities at large. So we're super excited to have this conversation tonight. But before we get started, I do want to do two things. One is our land acknowledgement. Although we are virtual today, I would like to acknowledge that the land in which Boston Art Music Soul Fest sits on is the traditional territory of the Massachusetts people, and would like to pay my respects to our elders, both past, present, and emerging. Regarding inclusivity and anti-harassment, Boston Art Music Soul Fest creates inclusive events and programs that welcomes everyone. Our staff, board, volunteers, participants, affiliates have the right to a safe and respectful experience. So discrimination or harassment will not be tolerated in any form, either in person or virtually. So, to kick off our program, I'd love to introduce you to our moderator, Jay Williams. He is an amazing visionary, adjunct professor, and director of special projects at Emerson College. So please welcome Jay Williams.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Catherine. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of this conversation. And I'm looking forward to digging in deep and learning more about these amazing brothers and the work that they're doing and, you know, the fatherhood that brings us all together today. So I want to introduce today's episode, which is titled Dad Joy, the Impact of Fatherhood on Visual Artistry. An artist's inspiration can be pulled from real life experiences, especially parenthood. In today's society, the beauty of Black fatherhood is often met with preconceived judgments. And so one of the questions, the overarching questions today is how can these preconceived judgments be shifted or transformed into something more powerful and positive? So tonight, join us for a lively discussion with some of Boston's most talented Black and Brown male visual artists who will share their experiences in both balancing and infusing fatherhood into their artwork. And so I'd like to take a moment to introduce our panelists for today. And so I'd like to start with Thomas Kwest Burns. Could you please introduce yourself, brother?
Yes, greetings. Like I said, my name is Thomas Burns, aka Kwest. That's sort of my nom de plume. That's a name that I used in the days. I'm a visual artist. I'm a father, Boston resident, born and raised. I've had the privilege of working with a good number of people in the days, especially one being this crew ALA that we formulated to do murals and art shows around the city. And this is in the early 90s, throughout the 90s, and even into the 2000s. And also been able to work with the schools and nonprofit organizations doing a number of mural projects and working with the youth in the community. I also just do my own personal artwork and create a big mess doing that, but it's what I love to do.
Awesome. Thank you, brother, and welcome. So glad to have you. Next up, Cagen, would you please introduce yourself?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for BAMS Fest for having us here to have this conversation. My name is Kathleen Moose. I'm a visual artist, and do primarily comics at this point. I've got a series called Lunchtime Comics, which is in Dig, Boston. I'm also the co-founder of Comics in Color, which is a group for artists of color who are interested in doing comics or talking about comics or just enjoying comics. We have monthly meetings that used to be at the Grove Hall Library and now are virtual. And we also produced the Boston Comics and Color Festival. Our first one was last April. Of 2021 that we had at Roxbury Community College, where we had a number of panels with artists from all over the country doing virtual panels, and a open outdoor market where artists came to sell their work. And I'm also a father and a Boston resident, and very happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Jason, please introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Hey, hello everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Jason Talbot. I am a co-founder and the deputy director of Artistry for Humanity. I co-founded this organization with Susan Rogerson and Rob Gibbs, who's pro-Black, who I met back in 6th grade. My nom de plume, as Kwest said, is SWAT. I'm also a co-founder of ALA Crew, and I love to paint, love to draw, love to work with young people. I'm doing my best to build a better community in the city of Boston, and I want everybody to get together and to help make that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And so, welcome, fellas. It is so such an honor to speak with you all today. And so I would like to start with the first question, and that is, how did art find its way to you, or how did you find your way to art? Anyone could jump in.
I guess I can start there. I have always done art. My mother was an artist, so she was always very encouraging to do art. We would, draw together, and it kind of became the thing that defined me as I was coming up. I was that kid who was always drawing in class, and kids would ask me to draw their pictures or do comics about certain things. So that kind of became who I was, and I never wanted to do anything else, honestly. I always wanted to be a visual artist of some sort. And so today I'm still, chasing that dream, doing comics, doing illustration, putting together festivals, trying to bring folks together to uplift the movement of artists in color here in Boston.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Well,
Wes, how would you say? Jason, you can go ahead.
well, I was at my mom's house a few years back, and I had a flashback of reaching up to the doorknob and opening the door and going into the room. And in the room, my dad was teaching my brother how to draw. My dad was in the comic books, and they would draw together. And my little self, I came in, and Sid, my big brother, was like, "Get out of here! This is my time with Daddy." But my dad, he scooped me under his arm. And I can distinctly remember tracing a picture of Robin. I had to draw Robin because my brother was Batman, but it gave me a skill. Like I could then draw, and in the school, some of the Cagen, I used to just finish my classwork, flip it over, and draw on the back. It was always something I was into. But then, a few years later, riding on the elevated train through Boston, you would get this view of graffiti on all the rooftops. And I just thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world. It always caught my imagination, and started doing graffiti in 6th grade with Rob.
Beautiful. How about you, Kwest?
Yes. Well, I would say it's a trick question. How did I find it, or it found me? I think we stumbled upon each other at the same time. It was neither of my parents were artists. They just had the typical paintings in the house. The little sunset or whatever have you. But by way of just noticing, like Jason mentioned, the graffiti on the street, and the styles and the colors and everything. And back in the 80s, it was all over. It was in many places, and it caught my eye and caught my attention. And so I would just work my hand to scribble and scratch and do things. And by way of through graffiti, it opened up this whole world of art, visual arts, because then I started exploring. Some friends of mine at church was like, "Hey, you can draw. Why don't you paint this picture for me or whatever?" And then I just went into it, and everybody loved it. And I said, "Okay, maybe I can do this all the time. So it kind of opened. I kind of stepped in through that way, um, and I just fell in love with it. I found it was a great way to express myself, a good way to be creative, and just challenge myself on what I could possibly do.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, before we get into the fatherhood piece of this conversation, I want to dig into a little bit more about the art. And if one of you or all of you could tell me a little bit about the process, because I think when we talk about art, most folks see the end product, the thing on the wall, the painting, the comic book, right? Already done. And as we talk about art finding you and you finding art, how much of the process is a part of your love for the craft that you do, particularly now as we are fathers. And Jason, you talked about earlier, right? Like, you walking into, your dad and your brother, having that moment, but that's the process of discovery and imagination and creating and learning and doing. How much of the process is a part of, your love for what you do?
Well, just to touch on it, uh, we weren't like flat broke poor, but there was just a point where maybe you didn't have any place to go, or maybe your same old toys were getting boring, or maybe you read all your comic books, or maybe it was that time of day when the cartoons were off and it was like daytime TV, and then you just had to occupy your time. And if you just had a sheet of paper and a pencil, you had the whole universe opened up to you. You could go anywhere. You could take a journey. You could tell a story. You could let your imagination run wild. You can reference all the things that you've seen throughout your day. It is such a powerful thing. And so, just a sheet of paper. Sometimes it was the old newspaper on the funny pages or something was inspiration, but you just drawing those images, copying those images, just working that pencil to keep yourself occupied and entertained as a kid was an important outlet and kept me out of trouble often at home.
Dope. I love that. All right, brothers. So how would each of you describe or define what it means to be a father?
I would say, for one, if I may, I found it to be sacrifice. I have two children. I have a boy and a girl. They're not little anymore, but in the days it was just giving them attention, sacrifice. I'm painting this. Leave me alone. Daddy got to do this. But it's like I have to stop what I'm doing to focus on them, because they're the ones that need the attention. They're the ones that need to be guided through the things that they're seeing in the world as they develop. And so I know that sacrifice was something that I had to put into play. No, I can't hang out and run over here, run over there. I have a responsibility. My children became like my masterpiece or best work of art, because I have to keep going into it and fine tuning it, like it's in progress, a work in progress. But juggling time and utilizing the space that I have to create something for them and do things with them. I found sacrifice was part of it. There's more to it as well, but
Absolutely. Cagen, Jason, what would you say?
Well, me personally, I've been a father most of my life. I was a young father. And just like Kwest was saying there, like, it is definitely sacrifice. Becoming a young father, I had to like put the art down for a couple of years to raise my daughter. And, until I came back to it later, and, it was, but it all kind of worked in tandem once I kind of got it all together, right? Because she was an inspiration. You know what I mean? You did have to sacrifice, your time and such to, or find the balance in your time to spend time with your children and also get your art done. But it was also I was inspired to do art by my daughter, and oftentimes used her as a muse, right? Like I would do pictures of her, or use her as one of the characters in a comic or something like that. And so it was always it was always integrated into my process, right? You were talking about process before, process of parenting, nurturing a person, and going back and fine tuning and stuff like that is also the process of parenting at the same time. And and with my son, who came much later, it's been a process of us doing it together. He's also super into comics and animation and stuff like that, so we are often doing projects together, which is really, really satisfying in a whole nother way, to be able to work on projects that you love doing on your own, and being able to bring a person that you love so much in with you, and they also love it. So it's been a wonderful kind of balance and combination of the two.
Awesome.
Now I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. My kids are still little. I got Elena, she's 6, and little Jason, he's 9. And I really felt like I had a debt to pay. I had a wonderful father, a kind, patient, gentle, funny ass dad. Like, it was just crazy. And I knew that not everybody had that. And I felt like I had to use him as an example, and I needed to share the upbringing that I got. Like, I had to try my best to keep that going, to keep that Black fatherhood continuing, and being a, responsible guy, and I want to be a positive role model for my kids and other kids and other young fathers, and so I see it as an obligation almost, that, like, I have to pay it forward the way it was paid forward to me. I got raised well, so I got to do my best to do the same for my kids, and hopefully contribute them as future leaders and contributors to society.
Absolutely. Now, would you, and I have this conversation a lot with, my peers and other artists, and we always debate on whether or not a piece of art is ever done, right? Like, it could always, sometimes when we put something out, be like, oh man, I could have done this, I could tweak that, or I could have added this, right? Like, a lot of times our masterpiece doesn't always feel like it's complete. And Kwest, you had brought up, earlier when you talked about raising your children, the process, and now they're older now. I feel like with the art that we do with our hands and our minds and our spirits is very parallel to raising a child, because although they may get older, right, 18 or 21 or whatever the age is, but parenting never ends, right? It's a constant iteration. It's a constant coaching. It's a constant, pouring into them based upon our lived experiences as fathers, whether we had a father in our life or not, right? It's this idea that the work is never done. What would you say to that, as you're connecting it to the art that you create day to day as your passion, as your dream, and then also being fathers every single day, right? Like, it's not something you can turn off and on, right? It's a day to day, effort. So what would you say to that?
This is to me?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
Well, I'll just say, yeah.
You can answer, but it's to everyone. Yeah.
I mean, it's a process. It is a process. It's a working process. Like when I'm, if I may say, like, if I'm working on a painting, it's not always going to be done right, or I might have some errors. But I come back to just fine tune it, and I take time to try to make it right. There's no need to rush. And the same with, like, development of children. As they're growing up, they see that they can make mistakes and still move forward, and you're there to help and guide them along. And as Jason mentioned, having a father, my father, he fathered nine of us, so he was there holding it down. He was tough. He was a tough guy, though. He didn't play, but he was there to help shape and show what you can do and what possibilities are there. I seen him scribble one time. He wasn't an artist, but it impressed me incredibly. I was like, oh my goodness. And so it's a matter of things coming together over time, or taking the time and just being able to add the ingredients or different things that to help spice it up sometimes. I mean, it's very challenging as a father, trying to get them corralled around and doing the right thing all the time. But it's a process, and I look at it like just creating something. Over time it gets better. Okay, and little by little, you see the end result, and it's been beautiful. It's been a beautiful process along the way, even the little drips and the runs and the the scribbles and such.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, in your opinion, what are the rewards and challenges of being a father? Kagen, let's go with you.
The rewards and challenges of being a father are many. I think there's a lot of challenges and a lot of rewards, but mostly rewards. I'll say that. You get to see yourself reflected in another person. You get to, watch. I mean, my favorite part of fatherhood is watching my children grow up, right? The develop and the stages that they go through, and the process that they learn. Like my son right now is 7.5, and he's, his vocabulary is expanding daily, right? He's working on storytelling in school and at home, and his concepts that he's coming up with and the language that he's using. I mean, it takes me aback almost every day. I'm like, oh, damn, I didn't know that he knew about this thing or how to describe this thing. So I think it's just such a joy watching them come into themselves and become a fully formed person. And as about the process, if I can go back and just talk about that last question real quick. As a parent who's kind of gone all the way through it, my children are 25 and 7.5. So I kind of like went through the whole experience and am in the middle of the experience. But there's also a point, in the process of making art where you have to like say, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to tinker with it anymore. This is a finished piece, and I'm just going to support it, right? So at a certain point with your children, you also have to say, okay, I can't like, and they'll tell you, right? Whether you decide it or not, they'll let you know that you are done being like telling them when to get up and when to go to sleep and what to eat, right? And then you just become a shoulder to cry on, a support, and it's kind of a different level, but you kind of have to stop tinkering with it at some point and just kind of let it move on its own, and you just kind of help it and guide it in little tiny increments wherever you can.
Yeah, that's a great point, King, because I do think, my son, he's 8, and I remember the first time I felt like I had to let go was his first day of kindergarten. And I think for me, it was, Dad, I got it. I can go into the building myself, and he let go of my hand. Right. And prior to that, like everything had been dependent on me. Like, okay, we're going to do this now. Okay, I'm going to bring you here. Okay. Like, and so that's like stage one of them saying, Dad, like, I got this. And I think it happens throughout the life, right? Like kindergarten is stage one. And then it becomes like, Dad, I really don't want to hang around. I want to be with my friends, right? Like, you're not cool anymore, right? Or Dad, I don't want you to drop me off. Can you kind of drop me off around the corner? Can you drop me off around the corner? I got this party to go to, right? I got my daughter that's 16. And so I definitely can understand sort of the journey of adulthood, but it becomes from this idea of being there all the time and everything to on demand. And that's to Kagen, to your point, of being that shoulder to cry on, or Dad, hey, I need some advice, or Dad, what do you think about this? Can I get your opinion? And then we hop back in almost seamlessly, like, okay, I'm back in the game. And then when they get whatever gem or advice or whatever it is, they're like, all right, I got this. And you have to be okay with letting go of their hand. And I think that, for at least for me as a dad, that's the hardest part, because you see a landmine, but it's sometimes you have to let them go into it so they can learn on their own, even though you want to steer them away from every little thing. What would you guys say to that? Is that also true for you and your journey so far as fathers?
For me, the hardest part is patience. Is just to slow down. You know, maybe lower my expectations. And let them be who they are. I really came into this thinking that I was going to, like a conditioning coach, mold the perfect human out of my baby, and that they were going to be, smart and gifted and athletic and creative and all, and I was going to, put on all this effort. But then I quickly realized with my son at 3 and 4 that he was his own person, that he was his own, he had his own outlook on the world, that, he was going to move at his own pace. And that all I could do is be a partner, a friend, a trusted advisor more than anything. And that's really, it's been hard to kind of take that role and let him be himself. Little Jason's real sporty. You know what I mean? He's not into art like that. He doesn't like to draw. He doesn't care for that. He wants to go hit the basketball court. And I've gotten better in these last couple of years of playing basketball than I ever did as a kid. You know what I mean? I'm playing more basketball now because I have to follow his lead. And so it's really tough to humble yourself in that way. But I feel like it's been best for him as a young man. Now little Elena, she's me. Like, we're twins. You know what I mean? I show her how to draw something, and she makes a whole storyline out of it. She's drawing every day. So I just had to try again to get my artist. But I accept them both for who they are.
Yeah, and finding ways to bond with them in ways that matter to them and makes them happy, regardless of where we want to bond with them. Like, you may want to bond with your son in art, but you got to find a way to bond with him hooping, and that's okay too. So Kwest, what would you say some rewards and challenges of being a father are for you?
Oh man, the rewards is just seeing them develop, seeing them grow, seeing them take their first steps, seeing them become like Cagen and Jason said, like becoming their own person. Like, you have these ideas, like, yeah, they're gonna be this, I want them to become this, but they already are somebody. They're their own little individual. Even in their small state. My daughter was brilliant. This girl, she amazed me just because as she's conversing with me, she's 5 years old. She's like, yeah, so and I'm like, really, girl? You know, they are their own little individual, and it's amazing to see that. And so my goal is, I got to protect them from the wolves and the serpents out there. You got to protect that innocence, because it's like, oh my God, look at this. It's amazing to see. And then, as dads, we know the world out there. Oh my goodness. So it's like protecting them from that so that they don't get, scorned by it and become bitter like their dad or something. But seeing
Yeah.
that and just allowing them to have that freedom and space to develop and grow, but also like making sure they, that the dad is like on guard, watching out for anything that will, and it could be at school, it could be with teachers, it could be anywhere. We just on guard, like, just protecting them from those things that they may not be fully aware of, especially in that vulnerable age. They're so receptive to drawing. I worked in schools with preschoolers, middle school, elementary school, high schoolers, and the younger ones, they're like, give me that, I'll draw whatever. And then the older
Mhm.
ones are like, I'm all set, I don't need to do that. But seeing them
Yeah.
go through those changes and grow and develop and things, and just, I don't know, as a father, the hard part is like just trying to be there to protect them, to make sure that they won't get injured or harmed, especially growing up in the inner city and all of the situations, that exist out there. There's been some tragic ones that have happened even on my street, and explaining that to them, that no, I got you, don't worry, even though it's like, ooh, do I really? Because I'm trying to keep myself afloat at the same time due to the situations that arise with police and brutality and all types of things, So I think that's one of the hard aspects of being a father. So I think when it really sinks in, like, oh shoot, I can't really be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like, to follow them everywhere they go as they go along their lives and things. So, but I'm always aware and conscious of it. Even when they're sleeping, I wake up like, make sure they're protected. I mean, I think that's one of the roles of a father, and it's I think that's also sometimes challenging.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I found myself, trying to teach Jason, how to defend himself. Like, so much of my experience as a man has been defined by violence. And so then, I'm trying to teach him how to navigate the streets, and I'm trying to show him the criminals. But then I had to take a step back because I realized, well, maybe he won't have to deal with the trauma that I dealt with. Maybe he won't have to deal with the violence that I dealt with. Maybe he can have better strategies to avoid all those things, or maybe this city he's living in or this school he's going to is going to be a different experience. So, I don't maybe I don't need to focus. Maybe I don't need to be so hard. Maybe I don't need to have so much anxiety for the experiences he's going to have, and maybe I should let up on the kid and let him just have fun and play and laugh. So it's just, there's a lot of that going on in raising these kids nowadays.
Now, Jason, I want to stay with you, but Kwest and Cagen, I want you both to also chime in on this. And Jason, why I'm starting with you is because you mentioned earlier that you were a late bloomer in terms of having children. So the next question is, how have your children influenced your artwork? Because you had a life, a whole life before you actually became a dad. You were already doing much of your artwork prior to that. And so how have they maybe shifted or added value, changed your style? How have they influenced your artworks since they were born? And then Kwest and Cagen, I also like you to chime in on your experience.
Well, with me and Kwest were talking a little bit before the interview, I did a self-portrait at this little art festival in Ljubljana over in Nubian Square. And, when they were born, I didn't have to do self-portraits anymore. I could just paint my kids, And so I paint little Jason, I got him all stylish with the bow tie. And then I painted Elena on a mural in Somerville, and so it's awesome to have them as subjects to paint, and I love them so dearly. Like, they're really precious subjects for me. I really enjoy that, but it also gives me a lot of confidence. Like they're my best friends, my greatest fans. They're my first and most important audience, and so the fact that they love me, the fact that they're inspired by and awe-stricken by the art that I make is enough to make me it just puts a battery in my back, revs my motor. I'm ready to go out into the art world or wherever. Not that they're art historians or critics or curators. It's just, I have this unconditional love that just propels me in life. So I appreciate them for it.
That's beautiful. Gentlemen, Kwest and Cagen, chime in. How have they inspired your work or shifted your artwork since they've been in your life?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I was a young father, so my art, integrated into my art in many ways, and have influenced me in many ways throughout the years. So much so that, like, the comic strip that I do, Lunchtime Comics, is about my family, and my children are characters in the comic strip. So a lot of the interactions we have and conversations we have end up being part of my artwork. And it's also really great now that I've been doing it for a couple of years to look back and see these moments that we had, right? So they were it's almost like a diary, like a visual diary of things that were going on in our lives at this point and in that point. And it's been really amazing to kind of have them be a part of it. And it also, like, with my son, for instance, like I like, I'm a comic book head. I like dark comics. I like, Mark Miller, Grant Ennis style heads exploding, comics. But and some of my work got into that stuff too. But then I started, I want my son to read and appreciate my comics, so I started to make them a little bit more family oriented. Where, like Jason was saying, he's like my first audience, right? So if I write a comic and my son thinks it's funny, I'm good. I don't have to go back and redo it or rewrite anything. He thinks it's funny, so I know that it's good. So they've been a heavy influence in my life, in my artwork, for a very long time.
I love that. Hey, Kwest, how about you?
Yeah. I would say they definitely influenced me. Just seeing them, in their development, and seeing their innocence, and also seeing in their creativity. Over the years, I was able to work at different art programs, after school programs, summer programs that had art incorporated with that, and doing murals at certain schools. I would bring them with me, and even some of the shows I would have, I'd bring them with me. I'm painting a wall, doing a mural. Hey guys, come on! And they would be curious and want to do things. And even on my canvases that I would just prime and paint, hey, come on, let's do this right here. And they'd be right down there. And then they'd try something different, and there it is. And all of a sudden, someone steps on the canvas, and there's a footprint or a fingerprint. And then I'm like, I'm adding that in there. Or it just allowed me to see different, the way they would just apply it and look at them and just observe. Um, and I would take them, with me to see these different things and different aspects of art. I didn't expect them to be artists. I'm just showing them, the things that are out there that's interesting, that may catch their attention along the way. But they've definitely helped me to see. And even the paintings I do, I mean, I don't depict anything like Kate was saying, which I thought was funny, because you can do some graphic stuff, like really explicit. I'm drawing this woman that's like, all laid out, but no, my daughter is my first audience, and that's so true. And one of the things, I had an open studio, and my daughter's like 6 or 7, and she's noticing that, oh, daddy's selling stuff. So she comes and drags this big old painting out, and she said, look guys, this is another painting. And she started just becoming my little salesperson. And I was like, there we go. So I thought that was brilliant. But just showing them that, and they're showing me things as well, it's powerful.
I love that. And Quest, I want to stay with you because earlier you mentioned sort of like, being able to protect your children, particularly in the neighborhood, but also having to protect yourself, right? Like understanding that, the body that we are in as Black and brown men, there's a certain level of protection. Not only do we mark circles around the things that we love the most, which is our families, right? But then also we include ourselves in that, when we're driving, when we're walking down the street, when we're entering stores, when we're going in the elevator, like we have to be mindful of the bodies that we're in at every step of the way outside of us being in our own home. And so I'm curious as to, how do you think society treats you, or do you feel like they see you differently because you are a father, a man of color, and a visual artist?
Yeah. I mean, we get looked at all 3 different ways, I would say, because unless perhaps I'm doing graffiti mural, then some people wouldn't take me doing like, oh, I do like paintings, and I do figurative art, and they're like, I mean, that doesn't fit you, just like, I'm a father, and they say, oh, you don't live with your kids or whatever, or one of those scenarios. There's these boxes that we get placed in, as far as being Black men, first of all, being fathers. Oh, we got baby mama drama, or all of this and things like that, or the stories where the mother has to chase the father down, or go through all of these things like that. I mean, I work hard to try to break that, because Jason mentioned earlier, like, my father was always there, and he was there. He had an iron fist, but he was there, and he would show us, like, boom, this is the way it goes, like that. And it was very important, because as we grow older, and as I grew older, I saw a lot of those who didn't have that, who did not have that in their lives and things. And so trying to hold that down, as far as, I'm gonna be a father, I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna be present, I'm gonna always be around and available, and then holding down the other aspects. I'm an artist as well, and a Black man as well. So I have to melt all of those together. I think I'll squeeze it all together and just be one universal superhero, something along those lines, because society
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily look at us as, juggling those hats like that. Especially, I would say, artists in that manner, because if you're from the urban area, although it's changing now, especially what they're doing in the city now, it's really changing the dynamics, which is a really beautiful thing. But I would say, like earlier, over the years past, trying to maintain your I'm a man. I'm not one of these thugs or hood clowns that's doing negative things. I'm trying to make a difference, and become, an example, especially to my children, so they can say, "Oh,
Mhm.
Daddy doesn't hang down there. He comes and takes us fishing," or something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Kagan, how about you?
Um, well, I think that what Quest is saying is right. They do see you different in all of those kind of aspects. One of the things that I do in my art practice is I do a lot of vending, like going to different events and selling my artwork directly to people. Like Nubiana, one of the I often vend there at the black market, and not so much at black market because that's our folks, but when you vend out other places, I noticed that, and sometimes I bring my son with me, right? So I've done many events where I'm by myself, or my son now he's a little bit older, he comes with me and stuff, and people's perception, and you sit there and you watch as people look into your booth and then either skirt on, right, or stay. And when my son is there, I appear much more approachable, right? Where women by themselves or something may not come into my tent to look at my artwork if I'm in there by myself. But if I'm in there and I got this, and he's also a very cute little kid with curly hair and all. But if he's in there and we're doing our thing and drawing or joking around, then people are feel like I'm much more approachable and will be more likely to come in and interact with us and my artwork. So I think it's it adds a different aspect. People see you as a much more caring, nurturing person if you've got a kid with you, or is your role as a father. So I think that yeah, your perception can be changed by who's if your children are around you or are you out there by yourself. If that does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. How about you, Jason?
For me, it's like I said earlier, I've had a lot of violent encounters in my life, and I've seen, you know, my people fall to violence. I've seen, my people end up in jail, in the system. And sometimes, it feels like, hey, maybe the society doesn't want young black kids to have fathers. You know what I mean? Maybe this is part of a strategy to impede our progression or to or to impede our community. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a target on the back of black fathers out here, and maybe that's why there's so many in prison or suffering PTSD or addiction or whatever or what have you. And so then, I feel like I'm dodging mines now, and when I was younger, I just thought I was courageous. You know what I mean? I'm fearless. I don't care what's going on out there in the world. You're not gonna slow me down on my forward progression. You could be a cop with a baton. You could be a gangster with a 45. I don't care what it is. I'm going to do what I want to do. But now, as a father, I feel like my life is more valuable. Like my influence is more valuable. The lessons that I learned are more important to share. So Okay, now I had to be a little bit more cautious. Now maybe I spend a little more time at home. Maybe I do need a designated driver. You know what I mean? All these things are coming into my purview to say, you know, I, as a father, I'm more important. I'm important to my kids
Mhm.
now, and I gotta act accordingly so that I'm there for them into the future.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that. And Quest, you said something that I thought was really interesting when you have different types of art and people are surprised by the type of work that comes out of you, right? I'm curious as to, and I want each of you to chime in on this idea that if they don't see you, but they see your work, how does that impact you? Right? Like you could create a painting and they don't necessarily know that the person that created it is black. They might assume or might not, right? Like because there are TV shows that are created with black people in it that are not created by black people or
Mhm.
Latin people, right? Like if so that question really presupposes that the audience is actually seeing the creator. You got murals, Jason, in Somerville and all these different places. Have you heard conversations or been witnessed comments, whether it be on social media or other aspects, where folks don't know Jason the person, they know Jason the artist. They may not know what you look like, where you're from, whether you're a dad or not, right? Has it shifted when they realize, oh no, it's a black guy, and oh, by the way, he's actually a dad? Do you think that changes anything, or do you think it stays the same? Do people appreciate the work more after they see you, or less, you think, after they see you, or is it going to change at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, prejudice is a thing. People judge you. And they don't know you. They don't know where you've been. I've had people. I've been in the process of painting a painting, and people have been like, "Did you do that? Wow!" Like so surprised. Like, what's so surprising about the fact that I can do this? Like, what? Why? What
Mm-hmm.
is? What are your preconceived notions? What do you expect to see out of an artist who looks like me? And I do feel like it's pretty tough. If you internalize that stuff, right? I really have to separate myself. I have to let people have their biases, let people live their lives and believe what they believe, and meanwhile, continue to blow people's minds with the excellence that exists in the black community. Listen, y'all, there are gems, there are powerful people and leaders, there are loud voices. We've been suppressed, y'all. Like nobody gave us the platform in the past, and so now that we're getting it, now that we're visible, now that you're seeing what we're capable of, don't be surprised. You knew all
Mm-hmm.
along. You knew all along. That's why you
Mm-hmm.
were fighting so hard to keep us out of competition. But now, hey, let's level this playing field. Let's play fair and let's let the champions rise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Amen to
I love
that.
that. I
And
love that. I
if
Mhm.
love
I'm
that.
Yeah, amen to that. If I would just chime as well on that, the same thing. It's like because I mean, it has changed, and that is I do see a big difference nowadays as you see in Nubian Square now. It's like the transformation of art and things down there of what they're doing at Black Market is incredible. And so, like 25 years ago, if you go to 91, 92, when we formulated the ALA crew, African Latino Alliance, it was like all graffiti writers from African Latino descent throughout the city coming together, and then we're gonna do graffiti and join this form like Voltron and create this powerful group. But we were doing graffiti, and graffiti at that time was frowned upon dramatically, and there was campaigns out there posting up. Graffiti is related to gangster business and gangster activity and drug activity. My parents thought I was. They was like, "You better put that down and stop doing that gang stuff." It was just none of us were gangsters. None of us ever was doing any criminal activity aside from placing paint to the wall. But we was feeling like we was expressing ourselves. But the 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 media and everything was so pushing it down so much. It became a felony to write your name on the wall. And so we weren't able to really express ourselves. We had to run in the corners in the shadows and express ourselves, with the risk of getting in trouble and all of these things. And then years later, we have them now. Colleges is teaching it, professors is teaching it. It's in art schools. It's all over the place. Graffiti, coming from somewhere where we got arrested and kicked down and put down. Now there's international murals from those using spray can. They're not graffiti artists. I mean, they're spray can artists, but it's all over the place. It's like, wow, coming from a spot where, like Jason said, they didn't want us to do that. So with ALA, we started doing doing art shows, incorporating other forms of it to show like it's more than just that. This is the other side. It's deeper than just tagging your name on the wall or what they assume to be that which is related to gangster lifestyle or whatever. And because we all had artistic skills, and Jason was definitely one of them amongst others. They would all contribute, put things in the show to show them a different side of where we're coming from. And it was very challenging, and it was like people didn't take us seriously, or they just push us off as these little kids over here, get out of here, or something like that. But I see it changing nowadays, where there are a lot more leveling of the playing field, as Jason mentioned, like that, as we are in these days now, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. And you each chimed in on it a little bit earlier, and when you talked about how inspiring it is, or how good it feels when your children sort of react to your work, whether it's you, Kwest, your daughter bringing out like, this is my dad's, like, peace out, y'all should buy it, or whether or not your comic Cagen is funny or not, or Jason, your daughter like loving your work. And you also said something that I really love, Jason, how you feel now that you're a dad, that your life is more valuable, right? I thought that was really, really powerful. And so this question, what are your hopes that you would want your children to have when they see your artwork, aside from just like the warm fuzzy feeling of I'm proud of my dad? As you place more value on your life and your influence and your sort of guidance of them as they grow up, what is your hope when you create something? What is your hope for your children to walk away with, looking at the things that you create?
Yeah, well, so for me, art is really, before you put a stroke down on paper or on a wall or whatever, it's all about observation. It's all about coming to a deep understanding of the world that you're living in, the systems in place, the natural systems, the societal systems, all of it. Just really coming to an understanding, owning it, and then kind of expressing it after the fact. And so ultimately, I want my kids to look at my work. I want them to be excited by it. I want them to be inspired by it. I want them to grow from the experience of seeing my work. And then I want them to be able to feel as though if they can envision something in their minds, a solution, a product, a positive outcome, that they can then manifest it, that they can create it themselves, and that they have that power. I do it on canvas. I do it through painting. I do it with art in society. But I want them to know that they can manifest as well, that they can make the things that they want to see in this world.
Yeah, I definitely echo what Jason's saying there. Like, I want my work to inspire my kids, and I want them to understand that, like, you can do what you want to do, right? You can do what you love. You can express yourself. You can tell your story, and your story is valid, and people are going to be interested, right? They see me, like the process of what it takes to create artwork and what it takes to bring it out to people, and see that they can do that too, right? That you're not limited by what society wants you to do or what they say you can do, but you're only limited by your imagination and the work that you're willing to put in. And I try to show them that with what I do. So I'm just like, as I'm working on pieces or comics or illustrations or whatever, I'm thinking like I want them to see that they can do it too, right? It's not an unattainable goal to have your work published, someplace nationally, or have selling works out to people and that people will be interested. That they can. I just want to inspire them to chase their dreams, and it doesn't have to be artwork. I'm not even talking about artwork. If you want to be an architect, you can see that there's a process to get to where you want to go, and that your dad did his thing to try to get where he wanted to go, and you can follow that same path and go wherever it is you want life to take you.
Dope.
Yeah.
How about you, Kwest?
Yeah, agreed. Like the two brothers there said, it's agreed. Like, you see, they're able to see. When I was younger, I was impressed with my father fixing the car or building a porch, or he was just the handyman. He had to be the jack of all trades and everything, but he would put everything together, and I was there. Give me the wrench, pass me the pliers, over here, and I'm like, wow, this guy did this. And so as I got older, I said, I could do that too. And so I would just use my father's philosophy on, like, oh, it's broken here, we can fix this right here, even if I had to read a manual or something like that. So I mean, my kids will see that I'm creating something, whether or not they become artists. That's up to them. I don't care if they do or they don't. It's their journey, basically. But I say, you can go do whatever, but if that fails, then you can come join the family business, and we'll go in business together. but yeah, hopefully to leave something so they can say, you know what, hey, sure, we'll help Pops with his thing, or I'll take it over, or perhaps do some, go to business school and then run the finances down the line.
Yeah, I feel that. And so, in closing, I want each of you to chime in on this. How can the community support or elevate you as an artist, a father, and as a man?
Ooh, I would say,
Jason, Quest, go ahead.
that is something you got to think about for a second. But I would say, as a man, I mean, we need examples, or as a father, we need to, other fathers, that helps as an example. Like, other men, we see other men do, oh, okay, then we're visual. It's like, oh, he does this, so I could probably do that too. We need support, like other fathers, like, oh, okay, this guy he's going through the similar things that I'm going through, because it's not always easy. I mean, having that support group. I know as artists, like with Cagen and even Jason and Barrington and a bunch of us, have had events and things and invited other artists, and that's really helpful. And being us fathers, it's also helpful even more so, because we can speak about multiple things at once and cover many different areas right there. So I think that's a big helpful thing. It was great to see Cagen. I seen him one time down at the basketball court. I was like, oh, what's up, man? He had his son down there, and we were just chopping it up real quick, and things like that is helpful, because as an artist, sometimes we close the door, we're behind the scene, and we're just under a rock sometimes, where I am anyway. And then, knowing that there's others there who's going through it and doing things, it's helpful. It's helpful to have that from fellow artists and fellow fathers and fellow men, not boys and thugs and stuff, but men, those who stand on their feet and handle responsibility. Those who are willing to help and sacrifice and things like that, not trying to always take from others, and things. So I mean, those things are helpful. Having these guys around plays a big part.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I would say on that, like, how to support folks is, like, first and foremost, like, buy artwork. Right? When brothers out there selling stuff, buy the stuff. You know what I mean? And and I believe in this heavy. Like, if you've put opportunities out there for brothers to advance, and if you get an opportunity and you have an opportunity to put brothers on, put them on. right? Like pay it forward. Whatever opportunities you are able to get, pay that forward to, you know, another artist, another brother. And I think that's what we got to do. And, you know, show up also, right? If you know, one of your friends is got an art opening, or they've got an event, or they got a thing where they need help with this project, show up for them. You know what I mean? And this is artist to artist, but also just artists to the general public, right? When artists are trying to accomplish things and move the movement forward, show up for them, support them, donate to their Kickstarter. You know what I mean? All those things, and brothers need it. And as fathers, you know, we need it even more because we got, I mean, I don't need to tell y'all. I don't need to tell y'all. Kids eat cheap. You know, there's mad expenses. You got school supplies, art supplies, you got clothes, food. You know, it's just you know, support one another, pass those opportunities forward, and just be there for folks when they need you or when they call out for you.
I think for me, it just feels like, you know, let us breathe, man. Like, you know, if there's 15 brothers hanging out, then they're probably, you know, just taking a day off from the kids. They're not gangsters. Don't call the cops. You know, maybe we're just talking about art. You know, maybe we're just hanging out. Let us breathe, y'all. Like we're not bad guys. You know, I'm just trying to be a good father to my son and my daughter, good husband to my wife. You know, and guess what? It's not easy. You know, fighting the cops and dodging, you know, trouble. Hey, it wears on you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So maybe we need a little extra space. Maybe we need a little extra empathy as well, so that people can understand. Hey, we had there might have been a rocky road for some of us to get to this space we're in, and we just need a little love, a little appreciation. Like I said, empathy, so that, you know, we can move forward in a positive and be this father figure for our family and in our community.
Absolutely, and I would say to that, you know, I agree with you, Jason, 100%. And I think that one of the things that I would say is for the community to lead with love and empathy, and a lot of that comes with like the questions that we are asked or the preconceived notions that have been placed upon us are absent of that. They are absent of love. They are absent of empathy. Whereas, you know, they assume, you know, that you are something. Like for me, example, like I'm in a shirt and tie now. I'm at work or whatever, but you know, my form of expression is body art. So I got tattoos everywhere, and it's not always sort of appreciated in a way of a form of expression. It is positioned as something different, that I am someone different. But then when I open my mouth and we have conversation, and if you're leading with empathy and love, then your perception of me instantly changes, right? But a lot of times I don't get that opportunity. You know, I don't get that opportunity to have a conversation with someone because of your lack of empathy, or your deficit of love has now placed upon you this disconnect or this resistance to who I am as a human, aside from me being Black and me being in this body that I'm in, that for whatever reason you are intimidated by. And so I think for all of us as Black and brown men is for folks to, before you ask a question, before you place a judgment, before you formulate an opinion, is to lead with love and empathy and go from there. Because at that point, then we will find, I can guarantee we will find as a society that we have more alike than we do difference, and the differences can be embraced with that love and empathy. And I think for me, that would be something that I would ask for us as men, us as a community, and us as a society to sort of reflect on as we move forward in our future days. I really appreciate y'all, man. This conversation was so dope. I learned so much, and I got a chance to get to know you, Kwest. I mean, we met before, but I got a chance to know a different side of you, Cagen. We never met, but I'm appreciative of you, of your time, and your craft, and Jason, you as well. It was an absolute honor to speak with you all today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just, no problem. And I just want to end with special thanks to our sponsors, King Boston and Amazon. Thank you for joining us. The ARTDACITY series will continue to be released over the next couple of months on our website and YouTube channel. The next episode of ARTDACITY takes place on Thursday, November 18th in 2021. If you would like to be the first to learn about upcoming BAMS Fest events, please visit bamsfest.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We encourage all of you to follow and like BAMS Fest on social media platforms at BAMS Fest. Until next time, have a great evening. Take care.